Good afternoon and welcome to my first 2014 Kentucky Derby Contenders video. In this video, in the first part, we're going to talk about the anatomy of a Kentucky Derby winner. The second part, we're going to talk about my Kentucky Derby Contenders blog and my top contenders in the first blog that I'm going to be posting. And then we'll talk about where you can find all the information for 2014 Kentucky Derby Contenders. Now, 8 of the last 13 Kentucky Derby winners broke their maiden by October 4th of their 2-year-old season, including 6 of the last 8. Now, Orb didn't fit that category because he graduated in November of his 2-year-old season, but for the most part, you want to look for a horse that broke the maiden probably during their 2-year-old season. Now, let's use Orb as an example of the anatomy of the Kentucky Derby winner. For Derby winners, you want to look for a strong juvenile foundation. Orb had 4 races as a 2-year-old, graduating in his final 2-year-old start. So that will get you away from horses like Verrazano with no 2-year-old starts. They're just playing catch up. They just can't catch up no matter how talented they seem to be. Another one was Curlin. He had a lot of talent. He ended up finishing 3rd in the Derby, but his lack of seasoning did him in on that first Saturday in May. So you want a horse that has a good, solid juvenile foundation. It's the combination of the jogs, the gallops, and the workouts, and then the races as well that really builds them up, makes them stronger as they move into their 3-year-old season and into that grueling Triple Crown campaign. Long-winded pedigree. For sure you want a horse that has a pedigree to go. The longer the better. Now Orb had that. His sire was Malibu Moon. Malibu Moon sire was AP Indy. AP Indy was a Belmont Stakes winner, Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Orb was out of Unbridled mare, and Unbridled was a Kentucky Derby winner. So he had that pedigree on both sides to get that 1.25-mile distance. You want to look for a horse also that has sharp graded stakes form. Now Orb had that. He won the Fountain of Youth Stakes and the Florida Derby prior to the Kentucky Derby. Another thing, winning connections. Now Shug McGahee was his trainer, outstanding trainer. He had a Triple Crown experience. He had Easy Goer in the Triple Crown season. He finished 2nd in the Derby, 2nd in the Preakness, and then 1st in the Belmont Stakes in the past. And he's sired. Shug McGahee has trained many good horses over the years as well. Now Joel Rosario was his rider, and he was one of the top riders in the country this year. He ended up getting hurt after the Triple Crown season, but Rosario was a top rider and probably the hottest rider in the country going into the Triple Crown season. A horse that has running style versatility. Now Orb had that. Gulfstream Park was a speed favoring track. Orb liked to come from off the pace. In the Fountain of Youth Stakes, when the pace was fast, he came from about 8 lengths back. But then in the Florida Derby, when the pace was slower, he was much closer. He was within striking range throughout. And then that running style versatility can serve a horse well. For instance, in the Kentucky Derby this year, the pace was so fast, Orb came from a good 18 lengths back. But if it was a slower pace, as you could see in the past, he was able to sit closer, and that's what he did in his last start in the Travers Stakes. Actually, he sat a lot closer to the pace, took the lead, and he was run down late. But that running style versatility can really serve a horse well. The next thing you want to look for is strong pre-Derby works, and Orb had that. He had probably the best workout going into the Kentucky Derby over the Churchill Surface, and then he ended up winning the Kentucky Derby. So all of those factors of that strong juvenile form and that foundation as a 2-year-old, a long-winded pedigree, sharp graded stakes form, winning connections, running style versatility, and sharp pre-Derby works. Now, if you look for your next Derby contender, if you use those guidelines, you should come up with a live contender for the first Saturday in May. Now this year I'm starting out with 11 horses in my Derby contenders list. In no particular order. Honor Code, Shug McGahee, we just mentioned him. We'll start there. He's a son of AP Indy. He looked good graduating on August 31st at Saratoga. He was a good 20 lengths back. He rallied through that wet track and just rolled to an easy win. He ended up beating Misconnect for trainer Todd Pletcher that day, and Purple Sky as well. And those 2 horses I will look at. Misconnect is going to run, I believe, this weekend on September 28th. At Belmont Park to try to break his maiden in his 2nd career start. And then Purple Sky, he finished 3rd in that Honor Code race, and he's going to be running as well for trainer Tom Amos. Now, a grand arrival for trainer Nick Zito. He broke his maiden as well on Saratoga on August 31st. Didn't run as fast as Honor Code at 7 furlongs, but he looked good, and he's one obviously to look for in the future He has a nice pedigree, and I would expect that he'll get better as he gets older. The Ty Pletcher also has Havana. This one got a 102 Beyer speed figure in his debut, and he looks like he could be a good runner because the second place horse and another horse I'm looking at in my top Derby contenders list, Kendall's Boy. That one, he did come back and break his maiden at Churchill Downs on September 13th. So Havana had that fast race, and then he was flattered when that second place finisher came back to graduate. Some others to look at: Strong Mandate for Wayne Lucas is on a lot of contenders people's contenders list for the Derby next year. He looked great in the Hopeful Stakes. He's going to run in the Champagne next. He seems to have that pedigree, and obviously Lucas likes to point to the Derby, and you better believe that he's going to try to do everything he can to get that horse to the Kentucky Derby. Give No Quarter, Graham Motion, Sagamore Farm. This one's a Maryland bred, and he graduated by 22 lengths at 1 mile at Presque Isle Downs last time, and he got, I believe, an 85 Beyer speed figure. So that was a good effort for sure, winning by that margin. And he's won with Sagamore Farm. You know, he's got a decent pedigree, and I would expect that Motion will take his time and put him in the right spots and give him every opportunity to make the Derby if he's good enough. A couple others to look at. You have Bob Baffert, New Year's Day, and then David Hoffman's have School of Hard Rocks. Now those two horses both graduated on October 31st at Del Mar at 1 mile, and they are both certainly worth considering for Derby prospects next year. Nice pedigrees, and in School of Hard Rocks, that was his career debut, so that was a nice effort at 1 mile in his career debut. He's going to run in the Front Runner Stakes at Santa Anita next. That'll be on Saturday, September 28th. And then my final horse to look at for the Derby, Can Dip. This horse, Brett Calhoun, he graduated nicely at Remington Park on September 2nd, and he got an 89 Beyer speed figure. So I'm looking for horses all over the country that ran some good races as 2-year-olds, and then also that have that good pedigree, good connections, and maybe they can blossom into good horses. We'll have to see how this plays out. But those are the horses that I'm looking at right now. If you go over to horseracing.wordpress.com, you'll find the exact order that I like those horses at this particular moment. Also, you're going to see comments, pedigree information, where they're running next, latest workouts. All that information is going to be over in my Kentucky Derby Contenders 2014 blog over at horseracing.wordpress.com. I'm also going to do a pedigree spotlight each week that I do my blog. I'm going to spotlight one of the horses on my list, and then show their pedigree, just break it all down and see how they fit possibly for the Kentucky Derby, running over those longer distances in the future. If you go over to horseracing.com, you'll find all your Kentucky Derby needs. We have all of our Kentucky Derby contenders. All the top contenders are right there, voted by the fans. So if you click on Kentucky Derby contenders, you'll see all of them come up. Any horse that's a 2-year-old, they're all going to be on there. You're going to see information from past performances. You're going to see video of their races, comments from fans, and then you can vote as well if you want to vote on one of the horses for the 2014 Kentucky Derby. And that'll wrap up this video. I'll be back updating my video after the next group of stakes races for 2-year-olds. So look for these videos starting right now early in September, all the way through the Kentucky Derby, and my blogs as well. And that'll wrap up this video. Good luck at the races.